Scientists discovered 24 superhabitable planets with conditions that are better for life than Earth. Habitable does not nearly mean hospitable to humans. I like to think that superhabitable isn't a scientific term, and it was just a misquotation. The scientists were just like, yeah, these planets are like, superhabitable. /rip spong. All more than 100 light years away, so a wet dream at best. I remember when our planet used to be superhabitable. Great, when can I leave? Super misleading. When scientists talk about habitability, they're not talking about conditions being necessarily better for life than our planet, because they don't know, because no one knows, but the overwhelming odds are that these planets are still very uninhabitable for us. For our kind of life, those planets are probably not very habitable at all, as in, they probably have different atmospheres and gravity and precipitation. Perhaps a planet lacks a stable magnetic field, leaving life exposed to massive amounts of radiation that would destroy us, although life on that planet may have adapted. Perhaps it has an 80-degree axial tilt, which means a cold equator and radical seasonal swings. Almost certainly, these planets have chemicals that are toxic to us, just as our familiar oxygen, a highly reactive gas, present in that class of rapid exothermic reactions we call fire, would almost certainly be toxic to life that evolved in a world without it. The proxy for habitability is a temperature between 0 and 100 C, 273 to 373 K. If there's liquid water, we assume that something lifelike could plausibly happen. Alternative biochemistries are of course speculative by nature. What if there's life that lives in liquid methane, and to some extent it's unanswerable whether, say, there's something lifelike in, say, Jupiter's metallic hydrogen outer core. So, simplifying assumptions have to be made. What's novel here is the idea, rejected until recently, that cooler, redder stars may have habitable planets. If a star is too hot, blue, bright, it doesn't live very long, only a few million years, so it's assumed that intelligent life won't have time to evolve. If a star is too cool, red, dim, then a habitable planet has to be, in order to have liquid water in the first place, much closer to it than we are to our Sun, which means there's a higher chance of tidal locking and susceptibility to stellar weather, solar flares. Generally, scientists assume that stars between 4,000, 7,000 K, the Sun is about 5,800 K, are optimal. Now, there are some who are arguing that cooler stars might be more habitable than previously thought, and since those stars will last a long time, although nothing has lasted more than 13.7 billion years, the age of the universe, it seems plausible that life will find ways to adapt to, say, the tidal locking and whimsical space weather. Habitability is super complicated and somewhat subjective, not to mention reliant on things that are hard to measure from a distance. Venus is in the Sun's habitable zone. If it had an atmosphere like ours, it would be too hot for us, around 80 C, but possibly conducive to complex life. However, since it has such an extreme greenhouse effect, it's far too hot to live on. Similarly, Jupiter and its moons are far away from the habitable zone based on the Sun. It's still possible that life exists inside the moons, drawing energy from chemical sources and geothermal, selenothermal, heat. What's the rent like? Are they accepting new tenants? I just turned and asked my hubby, how did we only just find a couple maybe habitable planets just a year or so ago, and now we've found 24 superhabitable ones? I was expecting him to say something like technology is advancing, but he just blurted out because our standards are dropping. I believe the proper term is M-class. Or, just maybe, we could stop wrecking this one. How can we say conditions are better for life if we haven't confirmed life there? As far as we know, Earth is the planet to beat. I hope they have vast oil reserves. No. They didn't. Because our current technology level does not allow us to say what the atmosphere is. Or even what the surface temperature is. All we can say for sure is a rough estimate of the mass, and the distance out from the star the planet's orbit. That's it. That doesn't make anything a super Earth with better conditions than us. Really, it's only one condition. Which does not a better Earth make? What the scientists probably said is that they discovered evidence of 24 planets which orbit in the exact center of the liquid water zone of their stars, and maybe that the stars are particularly stable, and that the planets aren't too small or too massive, and then this headline was created because clickbait. Let's just say we not only figured out how to get there in a short amount of time and that these planets are perfect as in has the right atmospheric composition, has its own ecosystem but doesn't contain intelligent life so ideal for colonization. If we got there and landed we still wouldn't be safe. Far from it, we'd have to contend with all the new bacteria, viruses, and it's likely anything edible would be poisonousness to us as our bodies would see it as foreign and not be used to it. Finally, there are the bacteria and viruses we would introduce to the planet's ecosystem, not to mention any invasive species that stow away and get introduced to this world could potentially cause a mass extinction. That's not to say we couldn't colonize it at all. We would have to slowly introduce our bodies to this world's ecosystem over 4 to 16 generations to give our bodies time to adapt and slowly introduce our bodies' bacteria and any viruses that we bring along into the ecosystem over time to give it time to adapt to us. Right now humanity isn't ready to colonize a planet like this. We'd likely wreck it without help. More bullshit. None of the 24 planets identified met all of the criteria. However, there is one that meets 4 of the critical characteristics, meaning it may be more comfortable for life than Earth. If none of them meet all criteria, how are they superhabitable? Hey, we found 24 better planets for agrarianism/industrialism to overpopulate and annihilate since we destroyed this one. The brain damage is 12,000 years old. Haha, you mean the way Earth used to be? What makes those planets better is the complete lack of humans. I've already packed, when can we leave? Is this a clickbait title? There's no way they just found 24 planets with water and breathable air with this small news attention. Humans will, in the next 100 years, figure out how to do interstellar travel, out of necessity and ambition. I won't be around, but it will happen. Dumb question here: if we put internet on one of these bad boys, would I still see Earth Reddit? Scientists concluded that these planets were more suitable for life due to the significantly lower amount of humans detected there. I don't want to worry anyone, but I think we should concentrate on surviving the next 100 years without destroying ourselves. I think a star that's hundreds of light years away is a problem for many generations down the road. Don't worry, we can mess them up in no time, if we can reach them. So long and thanks for all the fish. No humans being the leading cause. That are better for life than Earth. Because humans are not there.